Good morning.
Morning.
So you are at Hiring the Right People, just in case you walked into the wrong seminar. And I know that we have all hired somebody that maybe wasn't the right person, right? You hired yourself and you weren't the right person? Yeah.
This isn't working out.
So let's hope that we can learn a little bit about hiring the right people today. So we've got Ben Royer from Royal Communications and Zach Hubeck from Wave Inc., and they're going to tell you a little bit about it. I'll let them tell you about themselves as well. So we're going to start with Ben.
So on my slides, I'll just kind of preface this with, I've always looked at these shows as kind of the slides will give you little tidbits, but a lot of what you take away is in the conversation. So I tried to, when I was preparing for this panel and others, just kind of put together a few talking points that I thought were important, at least for us as a company. Obviously, every company is different. But then when we're all done, we'll open it up for discussion. So if you have questions, by all means. So I'm Ben Royer. I'm the operations manager at Royal Communications. Just a real quick backstory. We started a dial-up company in '99. 2001, we went fixed wireless. At that point in time, we had 2 employees plus my dad that started the company. And we were in 3 towns. Now we've grown to just over 5,500 customers, 83 tower sites over 7 counties. That number actually changed right before I came down here. We hired 2 more guys, so we're up to 26 employees now. I oversee pretty much all of them. So when it comes to hiring the right person, one of the first things that we look at is how it will affect us. So you have to kind of plan ahead. How will it affect you today? So if I were to go out and hire somebody today, will it change my payroll? Obviously, yes. Our production. So as a company, you might look at it and say, well, we're behind 2 weeks, so I need to get another person in here. But what's it going to do to you as far as once those 2 weeks are up? So you kind of have to look at the nearsighted. Also environment. How will a new employee fit the environment? It's kind of funny that sometimes when you bring a new person on, all of a sudden, you might have guys all of a sudden pick up the slack and now your productivity goes up. Sometimes they get a little discouraged, so productivity goes down. So you have to kind of gauge your environment as well. But then the further out your projections go, so even if we go say 6 months down the road, again that changes your production as a whole, right? So now that guy's been there, and normally you guys are scheduled out, a couple days. Well, if you just got scheduled out 2 weeks initially, and you thought you needed a guy, now you're back to like 1 day. What is your company going to do with that new employee in that time frame? You have to kind of fill that gap. So a lot of planning goes into that. Again, environment, so it kind of sounds redundant, a lot of these points, obviously. But how does it change the dynamic of the company? Is that person fitting well? Are the people around him okay, or her? And then payroll. So the initial upfront cost is different than the 6-month cost, which is different than the long-term cost. So at least for us. So if I hire a new installer, for example, I have to account for at least $1,000 in safety gear of upfront cost, among other things. Now down the road, I don't have to replace that gear for another couple of years. So my costs have changed from just the initial hiring on versus the 6-month projection, which is typically just payroll, right? At 6 months, you're really just worried about payroll and taxes. But if we get further out, so 2 years, when it comes to payroll, for one, which I didn't have it up there, but what about 401ks and different plans like that? Now you're starting to affect that, right? So our company does a 100% matching up to 4% on 401k, but it's for long-term employees. So I have to take into account if that employee is here for the long term, they may want to take advantage of that. And so I'm going to have to start feeding into that 401k and everything else. But what are your long-term goals? What is your growth projections? I talked to somebody the other day about their company, and they were kind of talking about, well, I don't really want to grow out into certain markets because, I don't know, we're not that big yet. And my response to them was, well, do you want to be that big? Because I mean, if you want to be that big, you can plan to grow in those markets. And so that's one of the kind of questions that we ask long term is, and our hiring process for our company is mainly built off of this long term projection. So we don't really look at the close. If we're a couple weeks out and we're not used to that, we kind of bear down and we deal with it. We look at the long-term goal. Are we going to make sure that this employee is a career employee? That's something that we've just done as a local small company, is we want to make sure that our employees are well taken care of for as long as they want to be with us. So we look at our long-term goals, our long-term growth. And then there's the question of when do you add? So at what point in time do you make that decision that, yeah, okay, now's the time. We're 4 weeks out consistently, so now's the time to add an employee. Or for our case, we're expanding into fiber and we're doing a lot more tower and infrastructure work, so now's the time where we need to add a couple guys. And so that's why we just hired a couple before I came down here. So one of the key points that I like to remind myself and my father, who is the owner of the company, you can't hire yourself. You already did that. So the reason I bring that up is because a lot of times we get into the habit of, when we're going into a hiring process, trying to find the person that we are and that started our company. It's very hard to do. But if you find those character points in you, then look for that in the person that you're hiring, but keep it simple. So you're not going to match every single dynamic of you. You're not going to find the technical minded person that's also willing to go out in the cold weather and climb a tower and willing to be up at odd hours of the night and fix things, because that's you. It's your business. It's your livelihood. You're worried about that. They aren't. But find the few things that you do want in that worker. So you want them to be a hard worker. Clean worker was kind of a funny one, because somebody saw that slide and they're like make them take a shower every day. And I was like, no, like make sure they're that too. But like I was just mentioning, I just got my email that I have my dispatcher take a picture of my employees' vans every couple weeks, because I just want to make sure that we look professional all the time. So if that's something important to you, quality of how your vans look and your equipment is and all that, and adaptive for me is a big one. With our industry especially, being able to adapt to certain situations that are maybe more difficult than others. But don't go into too much detail, because again, you won't find you. And the off chance that you will, hire them right away. But I doubt that you will. The other thing to keep in mind, you can pick your work family, but can't pick your own family. I did a little comparison between the two. So your work family, sometimes you're around them more. So sometimes in the selection process, you want to be a little bit more selective. Oh, my thing got all messed up. You don't get to see it here. I'll just put them all up there. Okay, so the real family just shows up, right? You don't get to pick them. With work family, you want to create a connection. You want to make sure they mesh well. That goes back to how they fit your environment, your company environment. You want to make sure they mesh well. Real family, you don't even know which cousin that was. They get upset. Usually they tell you about it at work. Family, yeah, they get upset, but they never tell you. But you should know. And if you don't know, that's the problem. That might be a little personal slide. I don't know. But the work family will judge you. The other family will too. But the reason I bring these points up is because our work family, we can cater to that. We can't always cater to our real family, but work family we can. So be selective in your hiring process. Make sure that they fit your environment. They fit your business plan as well. But also sometimes if it's not me, it's definitely you. I liked this little thing. It's not you, it's me finally realizing you're terrible for me. So don't sell your company short. Make sure that you're doing your company justice by hiring somebody and bringing them on. Again, we hire for the long term. So we never hire for short term. And some companies may hire short term. They may want temporary help or summer help or whatever. And that's fine. But they still want to fit your company Our company especially demands quality, not quantity. So I would much rather hire a quality employee for long term and be extended out a few weeks on our jobs than fill the void with a bunch of guys and then they're bad employees in the sense that they have bad attitudes or do bad work or are messy and things like that. So that basically is everything I just said in there. You want them to promote your image. And then wait for the right one. So make sure that you see all your options out there. One thing I did want to add, and I don't know if it's even in your slides, maybe not, but is as far as hiring, where you go. Do you talk about that?
Where do you go?
Yeah, like
As far as reference checks and things like that, I do.
a little bit. Okay, I'll let him speak on that, and then if there's questions later, because there was a few people that asked me last night at a thing about where to get the people. So we'll get into that
Okay.
a little bit later. But that's all I had. Just a few little talking points to start us off. I'll kick it over to Zach, and we'll ask questions later. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
So before Zach gets up, I just want to give a few pointers of what Ben said, that we just hired a tech manager, and my partner, who is also my husband, he wants to hire himself. So we started in September, we just hired this person, they're in their third week, so it's March now. But we were looking for somebody that exactly fit the bill, and couldn't find that person. So they didn't either have the right tech skills or they didn't have the right management skills, and those two things we found don't always go together. So just because Matt has all of that stuff, although he's not great at management, which is why we're looking for somebody, but that's why you don't always hire yourself. So we ended up hiring somebody who was actually more of a manager and had a little bit less tech skills than we were looking for, because we really needed a good manager. And so sometimes you got to look at what are you looking at what do you need overall. And if you have to kind of give or take on some of those to find the right person, you want to make sure you find the right person and not just kind of squeeze somebody into the square peg. So.
Awesome. Just to expound on that a little bit more, there's a saying I always believe in. If you think it's expensive to hire the right talent, wait until you hire the wrong person. So you look at that wrong hire 7 months, 10 months, 12 months down the road, and how much human capital you've put into it, chasing them around, cleaning up messes. You've spent probably 3 to 10-fold what you would have invested in a good employee in the first place. So all good points. So my name is Zach Hubeck. I'm with Wave. We're a distribution partner in this channel out of Aurora, Illinois. I've been with Wave for 18 years. It'll be 19 in October. I started out in VAR support, customer support, went into marketing, and now I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing. And if you guys want to know what mistakes to make when hiring people, I have run the gamut. So pepper me with questions. We are going to skin your knees in this process. It's never perfect. But hopefully today we're going to give you guys some nuggets. If you take away 2 things from this session from myself and Ben and Martha here, I think that that's going to be a victory there. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time on reference checks. How many of you are doing reference checks today? All right. So I know with in our role, I'm in an office. Okay, I'm not hiring tower climbers. You guys have to do background checks and criminal and other background checks on employees. But when I'm talking about background checks for references, how many of you love that process today? Calling on references and asking them questions about the employees. How many of you love it? All right, very few. So I have always historically approached a reference check as, did that person work there, and at what time did they work there? Usually those are the only questions you can derive or get from that person. It's very cold, it's very HR-like, and you're really not getting into the meat and potatoes, because what you really want is this person right for my company? So I always ask for several folks when I do reference checks, someone they've worked for, so someone that has been their boss previously, Someone that has worked for them, if that's applicable. So if they're a manager or a supervisor, you want to hear from them. Give me somebody who has worked for you. Someone that was a peer, so someone that had a similar title of them or similar role. And then all of this has to be within the last 2 years. If they give you a reference from 15 or 16 years ago, that should be a little bit of a notification or a red flag. Hey, this isn't, may not be the right candidate for us. So to get the group away from the did they work there and what dates did they work there, to get into some more of the meat, all of these slides are going to be sent off to you guys. It's a little bit of an eye chart, but I'll read through some of these poking questions that are really going to get to the meat and help you guys make a decision. Is this person right for the company? Okay, so you put down the person, the title, and the company, the people you're speaking to. This should be a 10-15 minute dialogue with these folks. And you always want to ask right out of the gate, do you have time for me? We're in the final stages with X. Let's call it Sue, this person Sue for now. And would very much appreciate your comments and candor on her strengths as well as potential areas for development. Okay, so you now have your reference checks, you're calling these people. What was your relationship to Sue? Is one of the first questions. So if she put down, this was my boss, and that person says, yeah, she worked for me, there's an issue there. Or, hey, I knew Sue back in high school. All right, that wasn't your boss. So potential red flag there. What would you consider to be Sue's strengths? And then you be quiet and let them talk. And typically when you're quiet on the other end of the phone, people want to talk more and more and more and more because they want to fill the silence. They're not comfortable with silence. So silence on your calls and dialogues with these people is very much a strength here that you want to use. Can you clarify Sue's responsibilities and accountabilities in the position? On a scale of excellent, good, fair, or poor, how would you rate Sue's overall performance and why? How did Sue compare to her peers? Where did she rank in comparison? What do you think she could have done to rank higher? There's about 15 questions here, folks, and I want you to pick and choose ones that you like. If you want to be that thorough with 3 of the references that they gave you, you can do that. But I'm running you through the full gamut, and you guys can pick and choose which questions you want. Does this make sense so far, and is this good info? All right. From a professional development standpoint, where are the areas that I should work with Sue on? How would Sue's peers describe her? How would your peers describe Sue? Is there anything that Sue demonstrated to go above and beyond for the company? That's a very good question to ask. Let me describe the position. How do you think Sue may fit into that role? Would you work for or hire Sue again, and why? And then what would be your best advice to manage Sue? And then leave it open for final comments in the very end. Can anyone think of any questions I may have missed here in this document, or something that you guys ask as far as reference checks and best practices? Perfect. So we're recording it, so I'll repeat for the group. So the point was, typically when a reference calls into your company, you have a company policy where you can't answer these poking, prodding questions. But to counter that, you can actually send these questions in an email format asking that reference to answer some of those questions and reply back to that. Is that essentially what you had said?
It's having the reference, giving a waiver.
Okay.
The reference when you answer.
Got it. So it's a waiver giving you the right to ask those questions. Understood. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Good stuff? A-okay? All right. I'm going to keep moving. So, there's a book out there, The Ideal Team Player. I don't make money when this book sells, but I've read this as a leader and a manager, and I think it's a really good read. It's by Patrick Lencioni. It's called The Ideal team player. And ultimately, it's based on 3 principles on people that you're looking to hire. It's based on how humble they are, how hungry are they, and how smart are they. When I say smart, it's not IQ, it's not a test, it's not are you intelligent, can you read this book? It's more emotional intelligence. And these are some more questions when you are in the hiring process. You've gone through the reference check with the 3 people. You're now in the interview phase, or maybe vice versa. Chronologically, it may not happen before the other, but you're in that process where you're asking them questions and interviewing them in person. So, from a humble standpoint, do you want that employee who's going to disrupt the office, jump in and say, look what I did, I am the best employee, disrupting other people, because that could have a negative connotation on the office and a negative effect on the office. You want somebody who's humble, a team player, someone who bleeds royale blue, who bleeds wave purple, and you're going to want that person to contribute to the greater cause. At least that's what I look for. So, if this person is a supervisor or a manager, describe your current team. What do you like and what do you dislike? If that person responds with, man, I got this person on my team, Shirley sucks, I've wanted to fire her for 14, 16 months, but I just can't. That's a little bit of something you have to pay attention to, because if they're going to be in a supervisor role and holding people accountable, that means they're going to have to hire and fire people and hold them accountable to what is expected of them. So you want to listen to their answers very, very closely there. What are the most important accomplishments of your career? When you look for a humble person, you want to hear them say, this is what my team accomplished before. We went into an area and we wanted to get 100 subs within a month and a half. We went in and we got 150 subs. It took us 2 months, but the whole team came together. Susie in the office was great. We had an admin do our marketing for us. We did door hangers. Joe on my team stayed up late and was putting door hangers on everybody's houses. And man, the team really pulled through and we did a great job. That's someone who can rally the team, get behind a company cause, and really be humble. What is the most embarrassing moment in your career or your biggest failure? This is where you're looking for excuses. Man, I couldn't get that tower installed in time because the damn engineer forgot to send me the cables. And man, that guy sucks. When you hear feedback like that, you got to pay attention to that and say, did that person shift blame? Or did that person say, I have an issue, I've got to work around the issue, and how do I work with my team? So it's, man, we failed, we missed this project. You're looking for the word we there in a very humble person. How did you handle the embarrassment or failure? If they say, I walked off the job site and didn't come back for 2 days because I was pissed at the team for really screwing that up for me, you don't have a humble team player on your hands. What is your greatest weakness? How do you handle apologies, either giving them or accepting them? One of the hardest things in business, especially if you're working hard on a project or proud about something, it's hard to really squelch that pride you have inside. And when you make a mistake or when you screw up, own it. I look for people to own mistakes and call it immediately. Nothing is worse than badly aged bad news. So 6 months down the road, hey, I screwed that up and I kicked some dirt on it. No, stop, apologize. I made a mistake and this is my path on how I'm going to make it right. That's a humble person. That's somebody who can handle apologies very well. Can you tell me about someone who is better than you and in an area that really matters to you? This really flirts with hungry as well. So if they have someone previously in their business or there's someone in the industry that they strive towards, you want to hear, are they humble enough to say someone is better than me? And 2, are they hungry enough to say, I've got to grow as a professional or I've got to grow in my trade? Man, this guy has all the safety certs and he's gone through all these courses and I want to be a trainer one day. You're looking for that fire in their belly, and this question helps that. Does anybody have any questions so far? Or comments? All right, I'm going to keep moving and hopefully not spill this coffee on the laptop. Hungry. You want somebody who is driven. The worst thing to do, or the worst thing, in my opinion, is to chase someone around after you've given them a project to work on, and you have to check in with them at every checkpoint where they're not coming to you and providing feedback and bouncing back to you. You want somebody who is hungry, willing to work hard, sometimes willing to work those off hours. Again, to Ben's point, you're never going to hire you because you will be up at 11:30 or 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. doing whatever you need to do for the business. But are you hiring someone who's going to be 90% of that and really willing to put that effort forth as well? So what's the hardest you've ever worked on something in your life? If they say, man, I had a 24-hour bender on Call of Duty and I got, 5 medals for it, that's maybe not somebody you're wanting. If it's somebody who, what's that? Yeah. Great job, hired. What you're looking for there is, man, I really got involved with the community. There was, and maybe somebody doesn't have this philanthropic, great story, but it's anything. You can tell if someone really has pride of ownership or pride of workmanship on any project they embrace. Maybe it's my sister was going to have a baby in 9 months, and I knitted a blanket for her. It was 40 by 20 feet. Man, I worked my butt off for that. That's a hard worker. That's someone who said, I have a goal, I want to get this done. You've knitted before, right?
Absolutely.
I was talking about Ben there.
It's my second favorite pastime.
You should see his quilts. He's amazing. What do you like to do when you're not working? Things you're looking for there is, I like to read books on, whatever it may be. I'm taking a class at XYZ Community College because I want to do this one day. You're looking for somebody who's driven there. What was your work ethic like as a teenager? Me personally, when I was 15, it was sports or wash dishes at the pizza place. And I chose to wash dishes at the pizza place because I wanted that $2.75 under the table per hour, and I loved cash. Is this person hungry for that? Do they want to work hard? And as a teenager, what was their work ethic like? Man, I had my own business. I cut lawns on the weekends. I shoveled snow, whatever it may be. You can tell if somebody's hungry if they did things like that. And then what kind of hours do you generally work? If they say, you know what, whatever hours you tell me to do, I'll be there right at 9 and I'll clock off at 5, no problem. I'm your guy. Some of the roles that you're hiring for is not that punch card. I come in, I punch in, I leave at my break. The state mandates I get 1 hour for lunch. Don't interrupt me. You don't want answers like that at all. Make sense, everybody? I can't say right now I am giving you guys anything that is like astronomical or holy cow, Zach, that's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But these are some of the things that sit dormant in our minds and are some of the things that this book has really brought to light for me. And it's just tips and things that you can take away for your business. So SMART, again, when we think of the word SMART, we think about IQ, we think about tests, we think about book smarts. That is not the purpose of SMART in Patrick Lencioni's book here. It is emotional intelligence. If you are hiring customer-facing employees, this is one of the most important skill sets that they should possess. If they are on a customer site and the customer is simply not getting it, you have to roll a truck. You have to realign the radio and get the internet going again. When that customer asks, hey, can you sit with my kid? We can't get connected to Netflix here. Is that customer saying, not my problem, I just fixed the radio, that's our point of demarcation, you're on your own, or do whatever? You may not want to have that person on the team. Or are they easily tempered? Or are they going to blow up at someone? So these questions really give you that assessment. Have you ever worked with a difficult colleague or boss? How did you handle the situation? Again, getting back to my previous example, man, that engineer screwed up. He didn't send me my cable. I walked off the job site for 2 days. Not the right candidate for the company. If it's, man, I really dealt with this difficult colleague or this boss, we had a disagreement, we needed to go our separate ways, cool off for 15 minutes, but we circled back afterwards after cooler heads prevailed. We worked it through. We talked about objectively what happened in that dialogue and why I blew up or why that person gave me that feedback, and we worked on a path forward. So that's someone who has emotional intelligence, someone who's not just going to blow up, walk off your work site, or be very difficult to work with. How would you describe your personality? If you have a technician who's going to be fielding calls for customers and doing support, things like that, if they say their personality is, hey, I'm reserved, I like my quiet time, I love being at home, and I love interacting, over the phone with people, that's a personality you want in that position. If it's, man, I prefer, my personality is, I have a hot temper, or I don't know if anybody who would potentially say that in an interview, but if they describe their personality as something totally different than what the role you're hiring for is, you got to pay attention to that. One question I like to ask, and I don't have it here, is I will ask a potential candidate, in your last job or in your last role, wherever you were, if it was college or whatever, what were some of the things you loved doing, and what were some of the things you absolutely hated doing? And I come back to them and say, I give them an example for myself. I said, there's things that I do for the company because I wear the WAVE cap. I do it for WAVE. I absolutely hate doing rebate report reconciliation for manufacturers, but sometimes I get tapped in to do that, and I will do it for the company, but I hate it. And you can't let them off the hook easy on that question, because what you're listening for there is if they hate to do the very job you are trying to hire them for, run away and move on to the next candidate. If they say, man, I hate talking to people on the phone, I get really frustrated when somebody doesn't know what I'm talking about, if they throw the term stupid around or any derogatory statement about a previous customer or things like that, whoa, no, move on. If they say, man, I love helping people on some of the simplest problems, I can literally, it feels like I'm in the same room with that end user. When they're having problems connecting to their internet, it feels like I'm in the same room because I literally can walk them through. I can close my eyes and envision the exact problem that they're having. And I'm really happy when I hang up the phone with Mrs. Smith because I just made her day. She can now connect back on FaceTime with her granddaughter, grandson, whatever it may be. That person loves people and talking to people. So if you're hiring for a support agent who's going to be helping people troubleshoot, that's the guy or gal you want. Make sense, everybody? All right. What do you do that others in your personal life might find annoying? That's another question. I'll move pretty quickly here because we've got about 10 minutes, I believe. Or no, we're doing pretty good on time. What kind of people annoy you the most, and how do you deal with them? Would your former colleagues describe you as an empathetic person? Can you relate? If they have a problem, can you relate to it? Can you help them find a solution? Do you have emotional intelligence? Can you give an example of how you've demonstrated empathy to a teammate? So, from a slideware perspective, that's all I had. Do we want to open it up for questions now?
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions right out of the gate? Nice and loud, please. Or if you could walk up to the microphone, that would be ideal. We are recording the session.
Are there any veterans in the room? Thank you for your service, first of all. Anybody hired a veteran? Okay. Ever had bad experience with them? Couple. I would recommend it. All the veterans I've ever hired, every one of them's been great. So that's something that I know we didn't necessarily touch on. Where do you source these employees from? And maybe that might stir up some questions from the crowd. But one source that I love is finding veterans. They're usually hard workers. They usually don't have problems with management, and they listen and learn very well. So just a little tidbit.
Nice.
There's a group called Warriors for Wireless, and they actually train veterans to be in the wireless industry. And I haven't hired anyone there. I haven't found the right fit, but it's something that you should look into. I think it's like warriorsforwireless.org or something like that. I know Jason Guzzo has used them a lot. So, and then one thing I wanted to mention, Zach talked about not being smart and not in test sense, but I do actually give people a test. We have a tech test and we have a customer service test. Can't tell you how many times I've hired somebody who said they knew Excel and then they really didn't know Excel. And I don't want to train somebody to know Excel. I want them to know it when they start. So I have the simplest test, and if you can't pass it, then I don't want to hire you for my customer service job because I need you to know that stuff. So maybe, if you're looking for somebody who you need to have specific skills that you can ask them questions on, either face-to-face or just like a little written test that takes 15 minutes to a half an hour, that's also a good thing to do to just get you past that barrier of like, how do I know if they can do these particular tasks?
We've got something similar as well. So anybody who is customer facing, typically in sales, either they're sales support or one of my sales reps, we actually send them a quick scenario that talks about this customer had an issue on our website. They couldn't place their order. No one got back to them in 2 weeks. Please craft an email response to them and mitigate the situation or help this customer out. And what we do is we time it. So Peggy is my admin, or whomever you have at the office. You can send it yourselves. But you give them a very specific time. It's like a meeting. So at 2 o'clock on Tuesday, I'm going to send this to you. I expect to have it back by 2:30. And that ensures that their mother didn't do it for them, their father, their brother. It gives them a half hour to respond to this thing. And then you can read grammatical, punctuation. If you're hiring a marketing person who's going to be communicating to your potential customers and they cannot craft an email or put 3 or 4 sentences together, probably not the right candidate for you. So we've got those little things that we do as well.
So we found that we got a lot higher caliber of applicants when we posted job openings on Facebook as opposed to the state's employment website. So one question was, do you guys have any suggestions like that, other places that are helpful to post job openings? And then I have one other just comment. So you talked about hiring people that say they know one thing and don't actually know it. One kind of thing that we kind of stole from someone else for new hires was we have a list of words and acronyms that are related to all sorts of different things, accounting or technical stuff. And we just asked them, hey, this is a list of words. Some of them have nothing to do with your job, but just, do you know what any of these mean? And that seems to kind of weed out. A lot of people will say that, they have a lot of experience with routing, but they don't know what a subnet is. Mm-hmm. And that really quickly kind of weeds out people that don't know, or people that don't think they know about something but actually have a lot of experience in it.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, so to answer your question, one of the resources we use, believe it or not, is our website. So initially we didn't have anything on our website necessarily about hires. We would always go out to the job postings and everything else. And as technical as the people we're hiring are, for whatever reason, they don't always check those areas. But they think, hey, I could work for Royale. I'm going to go to their website. And then they couldn't find anywhere. We've actually got a lot of good applicants from adding an application directly to our website where they can submit it right from our website. So that's one thing that we found to be very successful for us.
We used Indeed when we hired our last customer service specialist. And to your point of having that list of acronyms, one of the things that Indeed does is it has some templated questionnaires that people have to answer ahead of time. One thing I like about it is if they don't answer the questionnaire, they're immediately just, you weren't interested enough to answer the questionnaire. The second thing is it's a 24-point questionnaire. And so I kind of picked a number and I was like, okay, so you need at least 12 points on this for me to even look at your resume then. Because they're pretty easy things. It's all about answering the phone. So if somebody calls for your boss and that your boss is really busy, what do you say? And there were some math questions on there that were fairly simple. There were some internet type questions like what's the address that you type in to to get to an internet site, what's it called? It's a URL. And so there were some simple questions, but it kind of gave us a feel for people who either didn't care enough to try or who just didn't know the answers to those things.
And, one more thing to the additional sources. Trust your good employees. We actually, just this year, we hired a guy for our inside support, and he did phenomenal. He has a great personality, really good with our customers, and just kind of jokingly we said, man, if you had a brother, we'd hire him. He's now employed with us, his brother is, because you can kind of tell, that they were obviously raised right. They have a very great, good personality. They're good with people, and his brother's the exact same way. We also do a hiring bonus to our employees. So if our employee will recommend somebody that's good and they last 90 days, then we will actually give a bonus to that employee that recommended them. So that's another thing we do.
That's great, yeah.
Yeah, because of our industry, we have some unique requirements. So the question is, with a tower climber, do you hire somebody who likes to climb that you can make technical, or do you hire somebody that's technical, then maybe you can get them to climb? Yeah.
So it's right in my
I think it'd be
wheelhouse.
easier the other way around. Like, it's harder to get someone to climb if they don't know how to climb, right?
Yeah, so our very first thing is, are you afraid of heights? And they'll say, no, not at all. And then I'll say, are you sure you're not afraid of heights? No, not at all. Can we go out on the tower and you can prove to me you're not afraid? Because I've hired guys, they're like, not a problem, I'll climb a tower every day of the week. And then you go out and put them on a tower, and they're like, nah, I'm not doing that. So we always hire for, you can train technical, right? So you always want to hire for the personality, the kind of going back to the environmental thing. Will they fit your company? Are they not afraid of the environment, both in your company and literally outside? Are they okay with hot weather, cold weather? One of our newest hires, he did roofing. That's not technical, but I know what roofing is, and I know it's hot days. I know it's bad days, and I trust that he's going to be able to go out in the weather and not be upset about it. So we usually hire for, are you okay with heights? And give me an example, like roofer. Obviously, you've been on some roofs, and that's not a problem. And then, are you okay with the weather? And then I'll train you on the rest of the stuff.
Of course, that doesn't always work. We hired a veteran one time. He was in the Air Guard, so he's like a reservist. And he had been rappelling, and he went out on a job with Matt. He got up on the ladder and got up on the roof, and he couldn't get back down. And he was like, you're going to have to call the fire department. We're like, you're not a cat. So he finally did get off the ladder and got back down. But the fact that he had been rappelling does not mean that he was not afraid of heights. Because I guess it's different to get off of a roof on a ladder than it is to rappel on a rope. So just because they have done that kind of stuff, don't assume. So
Yeah, and one thing we do, we certify all our guys to be climbers. And I think that's helpful also for that standpoint, that if you have the guy that he's not necessarily afraid of heights, but maybe has a hard time trusting equipment, like how to get off the ladder properly or anything else, going through the certification process, you kind of learn to trust the gear that you're provided with. So that tends to help also in that.
I was concerned with some of the challenges, like say you're presented with the opportunity for hiring somebody that's family. You mentioned something about a good employee's brother. What are some of the things we would consider for that, or challenges? Do you have to look at them different, or something like that?
So at Wave, we have had family employees before, and it just hasn't worked. So we have implemented a policy where it is no family.
no, none of your family or no one else's family?
No one else's family.
Okay.
So nobody's brother or sister. I'm not hiring my mom anytime soon. God, that would be awful. I do love her. But the second you ask yourself, if we hire a family member, do we have to treat them differently? You have to stop immediately, because you are hiring somebody for the business. If that person cannot advance the business forward or hit the objectives you need them to, you shouldn't be considering them at all. And the worst thing to do is you hire family and say, oh, well, I feel bad for Joe because I know his son is sick, and John over there will be really pissed at us if we fire him. He's performing very poorly, but we feel bad because of this other extraneous circumstance that has nothing to do with the business. And while I absolutely preach empathy and treating people very well, there is a job to do. It is a business, and you don't want to sink a lot of time and human capital into somebody who's not going to work out, who you're going to give concessions to because of a relationship.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, or am I a
No.
jerk?
No, not at all.
We're here to make money.
Yeah.
Ah. You want to answer that?
Well, I work for my dad. So, and actually, my dad actually has said that he would never hire family again. But that's not a jab at me. We actually are kind of unique. A lot of times when you hear people say that, they're like, "Oh my God, how do you do that?" Me and my dad actually, I started building computers with him when I was 12. So we've worked alongside each other for a very long time. So we kind of have a unique relationship. He wouldn't hire any of my siblings, and I don't blame him. And in this situation, kind of speaking to what Zach said, we don't just kind of all willy-nilly hire, like, yeah, just bring your brother in. This was a very unique situation where we knew the characteristics of the employee, and we trusted that not only would hiring his brother not affect his employment, but after interviewing the brother and getting to know him a little bit better, we were able to understand that really neither one of them would be affected by the other's employment, and they're in different departments, so that kind of helps also. I've actually hired friends before. That's a bad idea also. You definitely, just like Zach said, you don't want to hire somebody, bringing them on with the assumption that you're going to have to deal with a situation down the road about special treatment. So just be mindful of that, and as long as you can avoid that, I'm not opposed to it, but it has to be a very special case, I think.
The other thing I wanted to mention just about hiring in general is when we put this customer service position out, I got an email from a former employee who we'd actually fired a couple of years ago, and she asked if she would be eligible to apply for the position. And since it was email, it was easier because then I could go, oh gosh, what am I going to say, right? And I emailed my HR lawyer, and he said, this is what you say. We don't hire former employees except under extreme circumstances. So that would get us out if we did hire somebody who was a former employee and she found out about it. But it got me off the hook of I don't have to hire her. I can say, no, you're not eligible. I was kind of surprised that she actually wanted to apply for the position, but you know, if you need a job, I guess, you know, you're looking for somebody that you liked to work for, even if it didn't work out. So, but that, you know, remember that you don't always have to say yes to somebody just because they're asking you, and the empathy thing, right? Like, I felt totally bad, but I didn't want to hire her because she didn't work out the first time. It's not going to probably work out the second time. So I needed to be able to tell her something that worked, that was still empathetic.
How many of you, just a quick poll of the group, how many of you are using job descriptions today? All right. So if you need a good job description, hit WISPA.org, hit the email thread saying, hey, I'm hiring for this person. Does anybody have a good job description for me? Google job descriptions. It's very important. We as people want to know where the end zone is and what is expected of us. And that all starts with that crisp job description. So during this hiring process, don't say, we don't do job descriptions here. You're setting yourself up to fail because 3-4 months down the road, when you say you're not performing up to expectations, they can say, what piece of paper have you ever given me telling me what my expectations are? So be mindful of that. If you don't have job descriptions today, there's a ton of people in this room who are. Use this market, use this industry as a help for you to benchmark some good ideas and get job descriptions. Very important.
Hello. So everything you've talked on so far has been for new hires. Do any of you, how do you handle when you have an employee that you're transitioning into a different position with your company? Do you interview them for that position?
I haven't had that.
Yeah, so there, just a quick little note, there is a managing the employees you have session, so I'd recommend that one. Okay. But on that, we have hired for different positions within the company. It kind of depends on the position for us. I created a new position, and for that one I did re-interview all my staff that applied for it. I opened it up for my in-house staff to apply first. And then if none of those candidates fit, then I would go outside the company, and I interviewed. But if it's for a position that already exists within my company, like for example, I've had inside or outside technicians come to the inside. We actually cross train anyway, so our outside guys are already cross trained with inside. So sometimes they can just transition very smoothly, and we don't necessarily do an interview process. So I think it's situational, at least for us. If it is a new position, I would definitely interview for them. But
I just went through the same thing. So we had a warehouse guy, Bobby, that wanted to apply for a sales support rep position. Totally different position, more customer facing, more customer touch, email, phone communications. We did run him through the interview process, acted like we never knew him before, and said, "Are you the right candidate for the role?" and compared him against other candidates that were coming into the business. So I would do that. Again, it starts with that job description, but interview him, have people that are going to be in the same role interview that person as well, because while somebody might be really great at picking, packing, shipping, they may not be great for customer service scenarios. So I say absolutely yes, re-interview them.
Thank you.
So I just have a few, more so comment points. So we're about 10 minutes from Eglin Air Force Base, the largest Air Force base in the country. We tried the veteran hiring, and what we found is, at least with new veterans, that the military has taught them how to doctor their resume to make them sound 5 times better. I mean, this guy was supposedly the best point-to-point aligner in Afghanistan. Come to find out after we hired him, oh no, he was the manager over all of that. So his statistics were his command group had the most, the best success rate in point-to-point alignments, but he was behind a desk managing it, applying for a job, actually doing it, and not really telling us that. We've also found a lot of them that we've hired just didn't put in the hours, weren't willing to do the work, sat around. So we've been avoiding veterans. Once again, we're in a totally different market. We're getting the fresh out of the military veterans. And in my opinion, they're still the millennials. And we all know about hiring millennials and that whole issue.
So I think you kind of speak to it there. I think you're dealing more with an age thing.
Yes.
More so, because most of my veterans are at least a few years out.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, I speak in generalities there.
Mm-hmm.
But from my experience, which of my 26, 7 are veterans.
Awesome.
And they're all fantastic.
Yeah.
But they've been out long enough. They've experienced other jobs, and they've kind of built off of their experience in the military to make them a better worker in the workforce. So I think it may be a little skewed just from your experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Notably
I agree.
so. But I think long term, I definitely would not look away from them altogether. Great guys, and I absolutely support employing our veterans. But I think maybe look a little bit differently
Right,
at the group that you're looking
absolutely.
at.
And then I just want to touch base on how you're saying putting an application on a website, how it really helps. We actually have a WordPress plugin that does this, and it requires them to actually fill out a form, post their resume, and post a cover sheet. And if they don't do all of that, they can't even submit the application on our website. And we found that that's really nice because we can post opening jobs. At the bottom of our site, we have employment, and we just get, I've actually got one just running for installation tech because I'm always turning through installation tech. So I just keep that one running so that I keep on getting resumes so that when we're in a bind, we pull out the binder and just start finding a resume. Hey, are you still looking? Are you still looking? And then we hire. So we found that to be a great tool.
Nice. Back to your previous question. I would say that the due diligence process up front is very, very crucial. And some of the tips, like I said, these slides are going to be shared with you guys. Awesome. When you do conduct multiple interviews, our philosophy is hire slowly, fire quickly. If they're not working out after 2-3 months, we got to go.
Yep.
But you never hire under duress. You never hire very quickly just to make a hasty decision because you have a business challenge. That person may not work out. But when, as far as finding out, hey, this guy managed that team and they were outperformers, have someone that's going to be a peer to that person ask them questions. If he doesn't know what a Fresnel zone is, or give me a time where you had a really challenging point-to-point deployment and how you accomplished it, you personally, some of those deeper poking questions are crucial there. And then when you have multiple people interview, that helps as well. And I would recommend right off of those interviews, you reconvene again and talk as a group. So if there's 2 or 3 of you making the hiring decisions, have them go off, work independently of you, and then right after the interview's over, you come back and you take notes, bullet points. This is what they discussed, red flags, that type of thing. And some of that's going to vet itself out.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Cool.
May I ask, what are some of the challenges you've had with millennials? You said we all know the challenges of a millennial. Can you elaborate?
So, also being next to Eglin, we're on the beach. I can't tell you how many times I find people calling in sick because the surf is right and it's time to go fishing. That has been, honestly, that's our biggest problem right there. The second biggest problem is the cell phone. Is obviously we've got to give a tech a cell phone to call the customer to get a hold of us. But you don't know how many jobs I pull up and the tech is next to the ladder talking to their girlfriend. Oh, I'll be there after work. Oh, get ready for me, whatever. But I find that that's the biggest challenge is that they see me, the business owner, I'm always on my phone. I'm answering the phone, I'm texting, I'm checking sonar, I'm messaging people, and they think because I do it, it's fine. But no, management is far different than the technician in the field. And I find, and not just me, I'm also an MSP in the IT field, and we find that with millennials, they don't put their phones down. Whether it's at work, on the phone with another customer, or a customer support call, they're sitting here texting, doing whatever. And so that's been our biggest challenge is we can't implement a no cell phone policy because field techs got to have a cell phone.
Sure. Is their quality of work diminished when they are calling their girlfriend, or are they taking 2-3 more hours on the job site?
I would say so. I mean, I've literally had customers call me and say, hey, Joe has been on his phone the entire time he's been here. And so, yeah, I do see their work degrade because of that.
Okay. I think, the big challenge for me, so I'm like a Gen X baby boomer kind of that area. I'm 40 years old. And my biggest thing in business is eye contact. And when you look at millennials and other people, first, I don't like broad sweeping statements. I'm not faulting you. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but don't throw the veterans out with the bathwater. Don't throw the millennials out with the bathwater because we're all dealing with individuals. Mm-hmm. You probably got a couple of sour apples, and that's bad, but don't then say, that's that whole group, they suck.
Right.
That's I struggle with that. So, but with millennials, how do they communicate? They text. And when eye contact, they need coaching, okay? Mm-hmm. And you have to have the temperament for coaching as well with any employee. One, they've got to know what's expected of them. But two, when you see the behavior that you don't feel is right, or, hey, you are a customer-facing employee and you're going to be in front of a customer, don't sit there like this and say, yeah. You have to coach them on, this is why this is important with eye contact, and this is why Mrs. Smith wants you to provide a look at me and care about the cookies I just cooked and compliment me. They need that coaching because they may not have gotten it from whomever raised them. Mm-hmm. So you are now their dad, you are their boss, all of those things, that all comes with it, and you got to have a stomach for that. And I'm one of the least patient people in the world. It's difficult, but you got to put in that sweat equity and it'll pay off. Mm-hmm. Because I have found with millennials, they'll work their butts off for you. As long as they feel a part of a bigger cause, or if you have a philanthropic aspect of your business where maybe you donate $100 to the Salvation Army at the end of the year. Millennials love that type of stuff, and they want a sense of being. And they want friends first, who they can work with and get along with. But they will work their butts off. I've seen millennials that I've hired 9, 10, 11 p.m. working on projects after they've checked Facebook. Oh, let me get back to some work stuff. Mm-hmm. There's some strong work ethic millennials out there.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned the friends first part, because we definitely have that where we come down on an employee and they take it offensively as if we're friends, and it's like this is a business relationship, and they take it to heart when it's like, I'm not insulting you, yourself, your being. This is, you did something wrong. Don't take it to heart. Let's figure out how to change it. But I find that a lot of people are like, the second we hire someone, they're following me around, trying to be my best friend. What do you do after work? Like, you want to go have a beer? And it's like, no.
Yeah, you can have both. So the couple issues that you stated, I deal with both of those and many more because I have millennials just the same. The call-offs for one. So one thing we do, we implement. Now they say that you're not supposed to discipline for call-offs, which we don't. But what we do is we reward for non-call-offs.
Okay.
So if you have a good attendance record, we actually give you an attendance bonus. I got that idea from another company in my town. They're a trash company. A good friend of mine owns the company, and they have a hard time keeping people at work. So they give people a bonus for just coming to work, and it's crazy. But you'd be surprised at how proud my employees are that they still run that bonus. Like, man, it's down to me and so, and we still haven't lost that bonus every month this year, And they take pride in it. And I've only got like one guy that doesn't care. And before too long, he's going to be gone because usually that one guy is also giving you problems elsewhere. So I think, speaking to what Zach said, tracking those things, metrics, if they're not meeting standards, then they probably shouldn't be your employee anyway. So I don't think it's necessarily the generation of the person; it's the type of person. It's if they call off all the time and they're on their phone all the time and they're not getting their jobs done in a timely manner, well, then they're just a bad employee. Get rid of them.
Yeah.
Same thing for my install guys with the phone thing. I used to have them call when they got on site and call when they left. They all like to text. That's fine. Text. It's the same difference. Text me when you get there. Text me when you're gone. So they text my dispatcher now. And I'm fine with them being on their phone. But if they're dealing with a customer or it starts to affect their productivity, then I bring them in and I go through the disciplinary process. And then if that doesn't work, then they're gone. So
Because we've tried to implement that, and as well as, trying to get photos of everything that they're doing. And what I find is they're always in a rush. And, we're like, why are you on a job for 4 hours? We call them, and they're like, oh, no, I'm down the road at so-and-so's. I've already finished that one. It's like, you're supposed to call. I'll do it next time. And so we find, obviously there's a pattern here. Is that the people we're bringing in clearly aren't the right people. But yeah, we've ran into that issue as well.
Some of that is, we talked about expectations, telling your employees what you're expecting from them. Some of that's job description related. Some of that is culture. There's, you mentioned that managing your employees, there's also a culture of success seminar coming up that I'm moderating as well. So, everyone has a culture, even if you don't think you do. You have a culture. So, and you want to have the culture you want to have, not the culture that your employees think you have. So, try to think about that. Expectations, culture, and then one of the things that we just implemented is a disciplinary policy. So if they're supposed to send pictures at the end of an install and they don't do it, they get a red. So when the tech team meets on Tuesdays, if you have a red, you get, I think it's 10 or 15 reds per the month. And if you get that many reds, then you get, you're at the next stage of the disciplinary policy. So they know that they're getting those things. Every week they're being told whether they get those. They also get greens. Sometimes they get yellows. So, every week they're being told, here's how you're doing on the job. Here's how you're doing. You need to work better at putting notes into Sonar. You need to work better about updating the custom fields. And some of those things are reminders, and then maybe the second or third time they're reds, and then if you get so many reds, we've kind of set it so that they're not supposed to be able to get that many reds, but if you're getting that many reds, then you need to change your, how you're doing, or maybe they're not the right employee. So if you implement those kind of things and you show them what their expectations are, then they're going to know, and they'll either get better or you'll decide that they're not in the right seat.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Sure. We have till 9:15. It's 9:05, so.
Quick question. We are a new startup, so we've been less than a year. My biggest struggle is I came in after they had already started, and So they already had some people in place. It's hard to deal with some people that's in place that really shouldn't still be in place.
Are you the HR person or the manager or where?
Gosh knows. I'm the office and operations manager, HR, and I do the books.
Okay.
So, and again, I came in after there was already some hires. So it kind of cart before the horse happened first. But anyway, the problem that I found is one, there are some people that were there before me that are in a crucial role within the company that I would not hire now in no way, shape, or form, and would fire if I could. I mean, it's just how it works. Then, secondly, the biggest problem that we're finding right now is we're a startup. We're in a very rural, small community. It's hard to find the right applicants, much less the good employees, but just getting the right applicants that are qualified for the job, that are local enough to do the job, and that because we're a startup, can afford. Advice?
Quick question, subsequent question for you. Any of these people that you think are below the performance standards, do any of those folks report to you or no?
Yes.
Okay, that's a good thing.
You would think,
Okay.
but bosses, yeah.
So is there an outside influencer or someone that you report to that thinks these people are performing well?
I report to the owners,
Okay.
and then everybody else reports to me.
Okay. And then, so do the owners see it the same way that you see it based on these people's performance?
They know.
Okay. All right. So do you have policies in place? First, do you have job descriptions for these folks?
I made them after I started.
Okay. Have they
there's
been given
policies.
them? Have you
Yes.
given them to those folks?
And
Good.
with a signature.
Okay.
They signed it. I made them.
As far as, next session, 9:45 I'm in, is managing the people that you have hired.
Yeah, I'll be there.
In there, I will talk about performance reviews and a cadence of those and when you provide feedback and who does the heavy lifting in those performance reviews. So my advice there would be if your bosses acknowledge that those folks are subpar or not performing the job, you have to have that safe environment with your boss to say, I would like to take this course of action with this person because of these things. Most CEOs and owners are very busy bouncing around. Use bullet points with those folks. Be very succinct with your email communication or your meetings, saying, I have identified a problem in the business that I think you're aware of. These are my points. These are my recommended next steps with this person. What do you think? As far as hiring local talent and things like that, I live in Aurora, Illinois, which is very populous, second biggest city in Illinois. So I am ill prepared to really give you the silver bullet of here's how you solve that problem.
But
Ben,
you're supposed to.
you may have some advice.
Hey, I live in a small town.
But you're supposed to.
Yeah, believe it or not, I think, culture is a big thing. So we have guys that literally drive 45 minutes to our town that has 3,500 people that live in it, and they're more than happy to work with us. What I would say to that, do you have the ability to hire and fire these people?
Well,
this may not
all
be
of
the
it one, it looks like.
this may not be the best advice in the world, but so I work for the worst bot. No, I'm just joking. My dad is kind of the same way. So he likes, sometimes gets complacent, right? And I think sometimes we do. So sometimes my best approach to people like that is sticking to hard metrics. So, okay, you're not meeting these standards. I'm going to give you this time frame to fix them. And in the meantime, what you're doing is you're going out and getting 3 or 4 positive candidates that I can then go to the owners and say, okay, I've made a decision because I'm in that position to do so. This person is still not meeting the standards. I gave them this time frame to do it. I've got 3 people lined up to bring in, so I'm going to go ahead and dismiss these people, and then I'm going to bring in new people to replace them. And I think if you try to stick to those, goals that you set for yourself and the company, it might help that situation a little bit.
That's perfect. My downfall with that is they go hand in hand with my first comment with my second, because that particular position, I haven't been able to find anyone else to fill that position at the rate we're able to pay right now.
Sure.
That's the downfall. And I think that's the reason why they won't let me get rid of him,
Sure.
is because he has the know-how to do the job, and he knows that he can get away with it.
Is it a position where you can offer variable comp, that is a pay for performance? So you have a base salary, and upon hitting these metrics and this growth in the business, you will get X in compensation. And so you may look at people in that role. Is it a sales position? Is it technical? What is the position?
Is titled networking the network operating technician. He's what I lovingly call in charge of the brain.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. If you want to talk to us offline about it and
Okay.
spitball some more ideas, I don't have the silver bullet coming to my medulla oblongata here. All right? Thanks.
All right, I think we're just about out. Any last minute questions? No? Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for coming.